Welcome to the Renegade Report. I'm Jonathan.
And Ramon is present. And you are finally back.
I am back, Ramon. I had to come back because World War III broke out, as you know. And, we've all been conscripted to go to the military. We have to fight on the front lines because Donald Trump killed a terrorist. Iran went to war with the whole world with their tiny little minuscule army. And now it's World War III, and it's terrible.
It is terrible. I haven't seen such a military failure since the Australians lost the Great Emu War of 1938. Where the emus beat the Australian army. Do you know about that war, by the way?
I do not know about that.
You don't know about the war?
Tell me a bit more about the emu war.
You know what emus are?
Yes.
They're like ostriches.
Yes.
Right. And there were shitloads of them in Australia. Mm-hmm. So the army went out to try trap and shoot them and kill them all because they were eating farmers.
Yeah.
Shit. 6 weeks, thousands of rounds, they've killed 6 emus. And I think there were 2 injuries because soldiers fell into holes and...
Okay, so the emus won the war.
They got stung by wasps, or who knows what you find in Australia these days. And basically the emus won.
Yeah.
Without a plan, without generals, without hierarchies. So that reminds me of Iran at the moment.
Yeah.
But World War III, it was fun while it lasted.
It was fun. Look, the Twitter hashtags were fun. Every single Democratic presidential candidate talk about World War III was fun. CNN making that their headline news for about 72 hours. That was fun. It was a literal bang to bring in 2020, and welcome to it, everyone.
Yeah, so this is the first episode back for Jonathan. I did a very short one last week, and Jonathan thought I was turning into some socialist bastard for some reason.
Before you did the episode, you had a couple of comments about city transportation, and what was the other one? History being irrelevant. Yes.
The history being irrelevant was satire.
Okay, all right. So I completely missed that.
Yes. I said, ignore the 98 generations of experience and wisdom that happened before you. You are better than them.
Ah, yes.
So, that is fucking obvious.
Directed directly at Simon Grindrod, or just, just vaguely?
No, I've blocked him.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, and you just block arseholes. It's worked wonderfully well.
Thank you for finally following my advice.
Yeah, normally I mute them, but when hopefully when they go to my Twitter account and they see that they're blocked, they get angry, and that's what I'm.
No, they definitely get angry, especially the smaller ones. They get very upset.
And then the other one was banning cars from cities. Yes, I approve.
Yeah, tough one. Eh? I mean, it's difficult to do. Number one, London's tried it. It just made it very expensive, and it means only the rich can drive around London. So maybe you still approve that, but yeah.
No, not like Joburg, because it's a shithole city, but a nice city like Bath, or some areas of Europe, or imagine Venice with roads and cars.
Yeah,
to be a shit show.
That would be quite, it wouldn't work, but also would be ruined if you could do it.
Exactly. But anyway, welcome to the first episode of 2020, and we look different.
We do. We look a bit different. New studio.
Because you can actually see us.
And hi, camera. Never look at the camera, that's what they say. But here we are.
I'll just look into your eyes. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's great that straight after I've been away and everything's feeling a lot tighter than usual. I mean, usually it's a little bit tighter than it should be, but now it's really not great. It's great that we're on camera. Thanks, Ramon.
Yeah, no, the pleasure's all mine. And so we are based in Racebaiting Mall. For everyone who wants to kill us, this is where you can find us.
I think that glass might require something slightly higher caliber, so just to let you know.
Well, they can only afford AKs, so I think it's sufficient.
No, they'll be fine, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's carry on. The year ahead, Jonathan. So the New Dawn fizzled out, in a much shorter way than World War III. But what do you see for 2020 from the ANC perspective?
Oh, goodness. And you caught me off guard because I hadn't seen your little notebook before this. So what do I see for the ANC? Well, I'm gonna bank on more of the same. I think they're obviously going to target all of the areas, as we've spoken about before. Everything they do is about where they can access money. That's all it really comes down to. Being in government was about accessing money. Maybe not in the beginning. Maybe they believed in this better life for all bullshit. But essentially, for the last 20 years, they've basically been doing everything they can to find new revenue streams. And when a revenue stream starts to dry up, or people start to actually ask questions about that revenue stream, and it's sort of politically unpopular, then they move to a new revenue stream. So you can expect them pushing into your pensions, your investments, I wouldn't be surprised to see them, depending on what happens with that junk rating, to see them going after foreign investments and also money going out of the country. So putting exchange controls back in place, bigger exchange controls. Because remember, that comes with bribery. So you get more money out if you just bribe the right people, and they know that.
Of course.
Obviously, everything to do with the power producers and all of that. We're going to get independent power producers, but it's going to be the ones they want and the ones they approve. Your medical aid, the NHI will slowly start to seep in, even though everyone has told you it won't. It will. It'll be, as we know, the ANC can play the long game, and they're happy to play the game towards their socialist dream over 40, 50, 60 years. And it'll be a continuation with the gradual slide, as we know.
Right. So it was broadly down my predictions. So
what do we disagree on? Anything?
No, I just think that, there'll be a proper downgrade to junk.
Yeah.
Finally. Moody's, I don't know, maybe they think African countries are special or whatever.
Well, I just think they come over here and they get put up in a fancy hotel in Sandton, and then a whole bunch of people get hired to give them happy endings.
There's electricity for that week when they're here. And then there's a load shedding afterwards.
but also like very high-end escorts, like very, and a lot of good food from like all the good restaurants.
I'm sure Russia trumps us on that. The Russian ladies are fine looking. The restaurants are much better. So, what can South Africa offer the Moody's ratings people who come here? Really?
I was going to say I don't know about the restaurants, but I don't know about either. But I would back our restaurants, frankly, but sure.
Okay, that's fine.
What about Cyril? You think there's a lot of comment about whether Cyril manages to... Because there's still this belief. It's incredible. The Ramaphoria stuff is over. The New Dawn stuff is over. Long time over. At 2019, it was over. But there's still this belief amongst the pundits, those people who try to make sure no one listens to this type of show, who want you to read mainstream newspapers and things like that. They seem to believe that, look, if Ramaphosa was just left alone, if you could put him in a room on his own with all the controls to South Africa, then everything would be fine, because really he's a great guy and he's really trying to do the best. So actually what will happen is he'll be chucked out and we'll fail because we don't have Ramaphosa, not because he is there. Do you think anything will happen there?
Ramaphosa reminds me of General Soleimani just before the missile hit. His convoy.
Yeah.
So that was the guy that Trump killed, right, in Iraq. He's a deer in the headlights who has no fucking clue what to do. The guy is fucking clueless and dumb and strategically retarded. So no, I don't think anything will happen. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't finish his term. Maybe it's even better if he fucking doesn't. Then we go back to that NDZ scenario that I wanted.
Yeah.
Where NDZ comes in and people don't trust her, like the media.
Yeah.
But the media loves Cyril and they trust him, so they play along with his bullshit. I see now they're finally starting ANC, there's a lot of stories this week especially about ANC hasn't changed, Cyril's useless, he's stuck, etc., etc. But we've been saying that for 2 years. So.
Yes, can't change, got to change the fundamentals.
Yeah, so maybe yeah, exactly. But no, Cyril is not going to survive. But more importantly, is Tito Mboweni going to survive?
Yeah, look, Tito Mboweni is interesting, but we also have to be incredibly careful with a guy like Tito Mboweni, because what he does is he disarms you, because you have a country in which everyone is on the left. Everyone. Some are just more far left, and some are just more slightly teetering towards the center. And that's what Tito Mboweni is. He's a leftist who occasionally says centrist type things, or things that are supportive of capitalism in some way, and you kind of go, wow, that's amazing. But you're not looking at Hayek, This is
no, he's Lenin with his 5-year plan. So when Lenin came into power for 5 years, it was a complete fuck up. And the next 5 years, okay, fine, we need a bit of capitalism just to recover. Yeah. And he put in sort of quite free market policies in the Soviet Union. And then after 5 years, okay, fine, fuck you, back to the gulags.
Yeah.
So Tito is like that. Because if you saw his tweet from a while ago, he wants a state bank, and he wants to take land, and he wants to do this, and he wants to do that. That's when he's being honest. We didn't have a real platform.
Yeah.
He was known, but he wasn't a minister.
Yeah.
And that's the tweets that you read.
There's a lot of cognitive dissonance in what he says, though, as well. It's like some of his tweets they don't line up at all. It's like, we want to take land. We must also support the economy and allow the free market type of. He doesn't say the word free market, but he's basically touting that. It's very interesting, and I don't think he can last that long. It'll be interesting to see. I think obviously Cyril supports him. But he also seems to be a character with a relatively weak stomach, because anyone who's like, I'm shutting down my Twitter account because it's too hard on here, is really not someone I trust when the going gets tough. And he needs to be a guy who can sort of take on everyone. When that document was released last year and he didn't listen, and he just released this document, which would probably take economic growth in South Africa to 5-6% within a couple of months if they made some of those changes. There were some trade union changes. There were some entrepreneurial changes. There was privatization in there. Easy economic growth overnight. And he released a document and was brave about it, but subsequently withdrew the document and sort of it's disappeared into the ether.
Because he moaned that people didn't comment on it enough. Like no one paid attention.
But the ANC, it happened. Remember, people forget that who runs this country is not the government you elected, even in the ANC context. The ANC NEC is the real parliament. They are the real governors of South Africa.
Yes.
And
that's what, 80 people?
Yeah, 100.
Is there 100 of them?
As far as I recall, it's 100 people. And those 100 people run the country, and it really doesn't matter what Parliament says, because Parliament, it's tail wagging the dog. The NEC tells Parliament what they will do, and then Parliament then does that. And if there's anything the NEC is not happy with, then it doesn't go forward. So that's really where the conflict will be. And unless Tito and others, assuming there are others, have the balls to say, we don't care what you say, and you can have a temper tantrum, and it's not a problem. You can go on Newsroom Africa, whatever they call that weird show. And I'm sorry, their lighting is terrible. I mean, have they not seen any news shows? But
no, Newsroom Africa looks like sort of Gladiators meets WWE meets like a parody version of Fox News. Like, it just looks fucking weird.
No, but their aesthetic is horrible.
That's horrible. What I'm saying. And then they invite like weak analysis, like from Mighty.
Well, weak analysis is part of the game.
Anyway, don't watch Newsroom. Don't watch any fucking news channels now.
Do you want to talk? Can we talk about Canton?
Sure. Well, let's just finish quickly.
Okay, all right.
So Tito, I hope Tito survives. It's retarded that he's like the most pragmatic person in the ANC. Knowing him, he's like a full-on. He's a Marxist at heart. So he says, read Marx, read Frantz Fanon, read all these people. They've got all the answers. And the Marxist is like, we need a bit of capitalism.
We should find out where he lives and get all our listeners to start sending him
He lives in Machuba's Kloof or wherever.
Then we should start sending him capitalist propaganda and just capitalist books.
No, we need to send him capitalist cookbooks. That's what he does. All he does is fucking cook, right? On his Twitter account, like, I'm making fucking pilchards and shit.
Well, then maybe he won't make it. Maybe it's on his stomach that's the problem.
And just to finish off with the ANC, so Ramaphosa, clueless. We both agree that guy. Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't last. Tito, hopefully he does last, but not for reasons of Tito's character. Pravin Gordhan's under pressure now.
Lovely, isn't it?
And I hope he falls greatly from a great dizzying height onto a steak.
Jeez. Metaphorically, of course.
A beef steak.
Yes.
Not a wooden one. But yes, so he's under pressure. EFF want him to go. Pravin must go. He's like trending all over the place. The looting faction want him to go because he wants to stop the looting. But I just want him to go because he's fucking clueless. Yeah. And he has caused the majority of the problems in this country.
Yeah, well, the EFF wanting him to go is just no honor amongst thieves, right? Yes. It's just different. It's two socialists, communists, or whatever whichever level you feel they've reached, and they basically have said, well, there can only be one, and they don't want him around. He knows their misdeeds. They seem to know some of his misdeeds, and it's just a fight down to the bottom. The sooner he chucks, the better. But what replaces him? That's the worry. Is at the moment it's the devil. You know exactly what Pravin's about. who knows what happens? The other person who needs to go is Rob Davies, of course, from our perspective.
Well, he's not in any official position, as far as I know.
Well, but he's still writing policy for the ANC.
Yeah, but that's the SACP always has done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Rob Davies is going to die of like old age rather than...
Well, he might die of wearing bad suits. I mean...
He would have died of shame decades ago if he had any, but he doesn't.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it would be great if Praveen can go. But yeah, but it's not like, it's amazing. You remember when our former president had these like midnight shuffles, not cards, cabinets shuffles, and he's just putting people wherever he wanted. It's like almost he had the power to do so. Cyril seems to have forgotten that he has that power for his cabinet. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, no, he doesn't have... Well, Cyril's forgotten all of his power, frankly.
He has forgotten. Zuma didn't even consult with anyone. He's like, no, I want Des van Rooyen in finance, and I want you there, and I want you there. Well, it's also, and then everyone's fucking shocked for the weekend, and he's like, oh, sorry, I made a mistake.
And it's also quite obvious, though, that Ramaphosa lacks power or control. He leaves the country, he goes to Egypt for a week, and there's load shedding out of nowhere. And the minute his plane wheels touch back down on South African soil, there's no more load shedding. If you ever needed proof that that he has like no real power or control and the people are completely undermining him, that was it.
Well, it's a lack of leadership. And my favorite part is when he says, I promise you no more load shedding until January 13th, January 4th. Oop. Stage 4.
There you go.
Immediately.
Thanks for that. Yeah, no, load shedding is, as the experts have said, and we're trying to get one of them on the show, have said that it's load shedding for at least the next 5 years. So on and off, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We can't, it's impossible to get back where we are. It's 20 years of neglect. That's what it is. You've got power stations, they require actual maintenance. You actually need to oil the belts on conveyor belts occasionally. You see them doing this at shopping centers, even like basic shopping centers know this crap. They got to occasionally stop the escalator and just like oil everything. 20 years of not doing that turns out bad. Bad.
Yeah, bad idea to have smelters not being maintained.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Crazy.
It was a revelation to me.
Also, when you build stuff with like polystyrene, like at Medupi, and like there's literally pieces of like metal falling from like 100 feet off of the side of towers and things. That probably also a bad idea. But good on government for taking way too long to build that, bowing completely to unions, letting morons strip half the thing before it was built. Yeah, great. Excellent job, guys.
And destroy a lovely town, Ellis Ras. Well, now it's called Lepalale or whatever. Yeah. I used to go there all the time for hunting purposes, and now it's a fucking shit hole. It's grown tremendously.
Oh, really?
So the last time I went there, you're in the field, in the bush with your rifle, and you can hear the power station, whereas like 2 years ago you could hear like
nothing,
the bush.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, other towns that have been a little bit, well, not a little bit, quite a lot affected. Apparently, Witbank and Middelburg apparently booming because of the coal. I'm told economy-wise, it's a friend of mine.
Yes,
there.
Of course.
There's an H&M there. There's an
H&M in Witbank.
Yeah, in Middelburg, I think. So apparently the Middelburg people look down on the H&M people. On the Witbank people. But essentially, both towns are relatively booming. But this came from a medical colleague who said that pretty much everyone's got stuffed up lungs there because of the coal, and of course, there's no environmental controls or anything like that.
No, there is environmental controls for us. Like we pay extra if we buy a new car.
Yes.
For carbon.
Yes. Well, the carbon tax, Ramon, that's been running for several years.
For the 0.3 milligrams of carbon I'll produce per day.
Yes.
They can spew tons of the shit every minute. And it doesn't apply.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, what have they done with our carbon tax, really? It's funny, our carbon tax actually probably goes to buy our politicians fancy cars that produce carbon, which is great.
That's a good point.
Who knows where that money goes, because it doesn't get ring fenced, so it gets used for whatever government wants to use it, and as we know, that's just whatever they want to expend it on.
It would be great if the carbon tax is being used to buy coal for Eskom. That'd be wonderful. Someone should do an investigation, and if you do, I want full credit.
I almost guarantee it probably is at some level.
So Gandon, we know him both very well.
Yeah.
He was at ENCA for a few months, and then listen, I shut off my Twitter account. I deactivated for
let me say it, because it'll coming from me, because it's going to sound defensive coming from you. Ramon went away, and I was like, where the hell is your Twitter account gone, dude? And he was like, I'm away. I don't need Twitter while I'm away. I want to chill. And this was before anything kind of went down. It was a couple of days before everything went down with Canthan. And then, of course, stuff went down with Canthan, and then Ramon's Twitter account was gone, and everyone was like, oh, he's running away, and all this like crap. And yeah, it was interesting. But look, I think my view on it, my take on it, and obviously things will become clearer further we get away from it. I don't think anyone was ever comfortable, and I'm talking anyone in the mainstream media who do have a certain ideological push for the most part. I don't think any of them were really comfortable with Canthan in that position from the beginning. And not only do I not think, I know for a fact in certain instances, because I was involved in conversations or was given information that proved that to a T. So he always had a target on his back. That entire thing was definitely bot-driven. It was EFF bot-driven, there's no doubt. And whether you call it bots or just lots of guys who are EFF people, and the EFF are very good at mobilizing on social media, going, cool, this is what we're doing today, this is who we're attacking. And yeah, they went after him for a metaphor and double standards, of course, because other people have made similar metaphors or worse since, and nothing happens to them. Shout out to Daniel Friedman. So yeah, he always had a target on his back. They were always coming for him. It was a misstep, I think, on his part, regardless. In my opinion, I think he should have been more aware of the target and then known that anything he bloody well said would have been taken out. It's like this, right? You get into a position, people don't like you. Never use any animal references. It's like, even if it's something majestic, don't use animal references. It's like, just do not call anyone any kind of animal, because in South Africa, someone will find a way to make it derogatory. It's so weird.
Yeah, I know the full story, and can't divulge it. I won't divulge it. But there's, let's just say, the orchestration was happening much more in advance. Yeah. It wasn't as spontaneous as it was.
No, absolutely.
That's for sure.
That's what I mean about the target on his back.
Right. So the people at ENCA are just not to be trusted. And there we go. So who can we trust, Jonathan? I can't trust anyone now, except for myself and Ronaldo host. No, not even him.
Yes, good old Ronaldo.
Only Politics Web, Daily Friend, Rational Standard. And that's about it. Sorry if I skipped.
Whoever I skipped,
I don't know who they are. So, back to South Africa, DA, massive year for them. Like, big fuck off.
Well, they've already made a fuck up. Are you talking about this year or last year was a big year?
This year, we're in 2020. Yes, it's a big fucking year for them now, because there's a leadership election and a policy conference. Yeah. And that will determine the next 3 years or 4 years until the next election.
If you want the DA to be successful, what you really need to do is you need to find every one of their prominent leaders, take away their phones and deny them any access to television. Because really, if the DA would just not be influenced by the Twitterati and the columnists and all those types of people, and just like do what is their base principles, they would be absolutely fine. But already they're cocking up.
What are they now?
Well, they're now in negotiations to go back into a coalition partnership with the UDM in Nelson Mandela Bay.
Well, I mean, in fairness, I think they're speaking to all potential coalition partners. It's not like just they went straight to the UDM only.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I get it. And I know Helen is a big fan of coalitions and all the rest of it. But it's kind of like, I'm not sure how many times you need to be bound and gagged before you I'm not going to go into that dark room with these specific people again.
Like, it's fine to take the fucking loss, man. It's fine if we regroup, we reset, and if you don't like the reset or whatever, then fine.
So here's a compliment. I was in the Western Cape for a good period of time over end of December, beginning of January, and all around the Western Cape. I did plenty of driving. And it's very obvious that province is just the next level above anywhere else in South Africa.
I was there for a week. It's not South Africa. It doesn't feel like South Africa.
It's just another. Even in the poor places, it's just a level above. And it's very obvious that is because of governance in many places, because it's things that government have direct control of, and it's a credit to the DA that the Western Cape is like it is. but it's also evidence that they should never, ever do what they did in Johannesburg ever again. If you're in a coalition where you have enough control that you can end up doing what you did in the Western Cape, maybe. But if it's making compromises to bad people, you should not be involved in that at all, and you should stay away and rather don't take the power. And here's the thing about the Nelson Mandela Bay: we have an election a year away. 2021 is the next election.
Right.
Why? Nelson Mandela Bay, by all accounts, is worse since the DA, since Athol Trollip was kicked out of that post.
Yes.
So it wasn't amazing when he was in it, but he seemed to be improving some things. It seemed to be getting better. By everyone's account, it's worse. Some things have collapsed, like public transport within the city, for example. Why would you give the UDM a leg up? Let them go down with the sinking ship, and in 2021, turn around and tell everyone to give you the only mandate. Don't be in a coalition. What are you going to achieve in a year anyway?
Yeah, I know. Why try to fix up the shit you're not responsible for?
Then
you'll be held responsible for it anyway at the time of the election.
So if you give people a year now before your election, when in a year's time they're going to look around and go, oh, this is pretty crap. All right, well, who's in charge? Oh, it's the DA. Oh, well, I don't know if I want to give them my vote. Whereas if you're not in charge when it comes around, they might turn around and go, remember when the DA is in charge? Things seem to be a bit better. I just think it's a silly political move for now. And
we'll tell Ronaldo when we see him next.
Yes, indeed. We can tell Ronaldo when we see him.
Whenever that is. So, but it's a big year because policy conference, election, leadership conference. I don't see anyone else other than Steenhuisen. I mean, DA's got a fucking shadow pool of talent. No, I mean, with respect, like, no great big thinkers.
I think you're right.
Gwen's back and Helen's back. I think that trio, it can be really, really powerful if they don't want to be liked.
It's not only that. Wait for the campaign. It's coming. It will be difficult to recognize at first, but within a week you'll be able to spot it. There is a massive race-baiting campaign coming for John Steenhuisen, without a doubt. It will probably start about a month to 2 months before that elective conference.
Yeah, probably.
And you will see it come from every single newspaper. We now have good evidence that the left in this country is not just acting on their own, that they are very coordinated, that they're all literally on the same WhatsApp groups. So that's coming for John Steenhuisen. Wait for it. There will be a big push to say the DA, the party of the white people, John Steenhuisen, white male, privilege, all those things.
How has that changed? I mean, that's been the same line for years.
There will be a barrage, is what I'm saying. There will be a barrage and a real push to make that sort of kind of headline news, to get a reaction from John as well, and to get a reaction from the usual people you would expect in the DA.
And then the reaction becomes
the reaction becomes the news, and then maybe they can even get a reactive cartoon from Germ. We need to talk about that. Maybe they can get a reactive cartoon from Germ, or they'll get a nice cartoon from Zapiro talking about how terrible white people are, being, of course, one of the wealthy white people in this country, Zapiro, and there it all goes. So that's coming. You need to see through the fog and just stick to the principles. And I really hope, I think the people who listen to this type of show do see through the fog for the most part.
Yeah, of course.
My worry is someone like John won't. My worry is that other people who need to be principled are pulled away from what they need to.
Who says John doesn't listen to the show?
No, it's not that. It's just to say that I really do hope those right people sort of stick to their principles. It's tough. I had a conversation with prominent person over the December-January period who was battling with sort of the social media environment, and how difficult that environment can be. So
just do what I do. Listen, this is if you social media scares you, this is what you do. You unfollow absolutely everyone. You only follow things that you like. So I like architecture, I like philosophy, I like beautiful pictures, or like quotes or shit like that. I follow 100 accounts of those sort of things, all like business stuff, right? And every time I see something that is like outrages me personally, I mute.
Yeah.
I mute hashtags, I mute people. I don't give a shit. I'm sorry, I'm only on Twitter to push my shit and interact with my stuff. And it's fun. I don't care about the news anymore. It's wonderful, really. It's changed my Twitter experience. And I never disliked it. I always liked Twitter. But it's just so much better now.
So I follow a lot of news accounts and a lot of sort of political people, and that's really where I base it. But the truth is, you don't need to follow that many to get people between the retweets. You kind of get the gist, right?
Of course.
And as long as you follow the right people, you'll get kind of what the big stories are for the day and all the rest of that. I generally don't follow large news accounts because all of them are pushing a certain issue or a certain agenda. If you want to know what CNN's doing today, just go to the CNN account and scroll through their timeline. Same for Fox News.
But you don't need to know everything as well.
You also don't. But my perspective has long been on Twitter, since it sort of became the sewer that it is. And this should apply to all social media. I've spent very little time on Facebook now. As far as Twitter goes, it's my message board. It's so kind of like a wall, right? And every time I want to, it's like a digital wall in front of my house. I own that little square of property called @Jonathan_Witt, and I put up messages occasionally. And if you're the kind of dick who wants to come and spray paint shit all over the message I just put up, instead of like writing underneath it your opinion in response, then I'm going to block you because you're annoying and you're irritating, and it's my private property, and you don't have a right to come and spray paint shit on my wall. And I'm sure that we're going to get a few, but don't you believe in free speech? That's not how free speech works. Please, I'm not explaining it to you again. Go read a book. But I think that is a good message for everyone to understand better how they should interact with social media. I worry about the mental health aspects of what social media is doing to some people. And it's so obvious.
We were quite flippant about that a few years ago.
Yeah.
When the social justice warrior activists used that sort of excuse, right?
Sure.
I'm on social media and I'm being attacked and it's degrading and all that.
So I still think it's a personal responsibility issue. I still think that if it's affecting you, that's on you. And that's on you to realize, identify, either bail out or change what you're doing. So it's not on me to not reply to your dumb tweets. If you want to block me, that's cool. If you want to mute me, that's cool. But it's not on me to not say things, but it is on you to manage how that experience works for you. And I think people should be personally more aware of the mental health aspects with regards to social media. It's very obvious. You need to look only at the American Twitter space, which is where I spend a lot of time. Blue-ticked people who are clearly not okay. They are mentally unwell. They've not coped with Donald Trump becoming president.
Rose McGowan.
Rose
apologizing to Iran.
Well, Rose McGowan legitimately probably has issues because she was also sexually abused.
Of course. No, but she has real issues. But someone take away her fucking phone, for God's sake. Like, why are you letting her? She's a lunatic ranting on the side of the street.
Sure.
You take those people and you comfort them. You say, let's seek
help. And they need counseling, 100%.
Yeah.
And but so those are that's one good example. But there are a litany. If they have a blue tick and they generally say crazy shit, chances are, if you step back from it and you go, okay, is this just someone with an opinion, or is this someone who probably needs to stop tweeting and talk to someone? You will find that in many cases that is the answer. And I think people need to be a bit smarter about how they manage their time on those spaces.
But I mean, balls to the wall. We're just saying, DA, don't fucking listen to Twitter.
Yeah, and guys, you know what your principles are. Every time Twitter says something to you, go back to the basics. You're a classical liberal, so go back to that.
Yeah, I know organizations that intentionally bait people to write nasty pieces about them, and then they get a lot more funding for it or a lot more support. Because X wrote something terrible.
And you get a right of reply, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, the smart journalists who hate us know not to even engage. Because engagement means that we have to be allowed space.
Yes.
And so they know not to do that. Don't worry, Branko, you'll give us space eventually. But the reality is that Siri wants to tell you something.
Shut up, Siri, you whore. She isn't real, so it's not sexist.
Your Siri identifies as male anyway.
Well, then it's certainly not sexist if I call him a whore.
So anyway, that's just on the sort of aspect of the DA and listening to social media.
Right.
Please don't.
Well, no, it's a big year, and I hope, for God's sake, something happens, because So far, it's been a little bit lackadaisical, as the president likes to say. Lackadaisical whites equals DA. On to America.
Yes, this is the real big
Elizabeth
for
Warren,
me.
this is my favorite story. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are fighting. It's phenomenal. Did you see this? This is yesterday.
Well, Elizabeth Warren just destroyed her presidential campaign. It's
Yes.
done.
Because she's fighting an old crazy man.
Not that. It's because she didn't shake his hand. That will be the end of it. Her campaign's done within 2 months, I reckon.
I saw she didn't shake his hand, and then comfortably smug says these are the people she does shake hands with. And it's like George Bush and like some fucking Russian
Comfortably Smug
war
is the
criminal.
best Twitter account by like a country freaking mile. The other day he had a tweet that said something to the effect of, Iran right now is rising up just as America did in 2016 to elect Trump's ideas to office and like something like that. And I mean, it was hilarious. He is an unbelievable troll and just
he is fantastic. So and then but anyway, so she wouldn't shake Bernie Sanders' hand.
Yeah.
And Tulsi Gabbard tweets, I met Bernie and I told him I would be running for president, and he's like, I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
So Tulsi's also like, fuck you, Elizabeth Warren.
The problem, I think, for those who haven't been following, just quick summary, is Elizabeth Warren's campaign came out and said that Bernie Sanders had said a woman could never be president. And then Bernie Sanders denied that he had ever said that. And Elizabeth Warren then, because she hadn't said it yet, but then unfortunately for her, went and said, no, he definitely said this. The problem is Elizabeth Warren has doubled down on lies pretty much her entire life, and it's finally come home to roost. So last night at the presidential debate, they asked, so usually they don't bring these things up, but now it's getting to crunch time. So the media is trying to push for their preferred candidates. CNN actually prefers Warren as a presidential candidate over Bernie. So they asked the most ridiculous exchange. They first said to Bernie, did you ever say a woman couldn't become president? And then he said, no, I didn't. And then they immediately went to Elizabeth Warren and they were like, Senator Warren, how did you feel when Bernie said a woman couldn't be president? So after the debate, basically they had a conflab, and it's hilarious to watch, absolutely hilarious. I think Biden was the winner of that debate, frankly.
I didn't stay up to watch it.
Yeah.
I can't give a shit. But so far, Trump 2020 is looking more and more likely.
Well, Trump 2020 is, I think, highly likely. Trump 2020 by a landslide is now looking more and more likely. I think at this stage, if things stay status quo, chances of him not picking up north of 42 states is unlikely. But not unlikely, but I say that's getting more possible. It used to be thought of as would never happen. It was down to, and we've discussed on the show, it was down to a couple of states that he would have to kind of win. Things stay as they are. He's easily winning those states we weren't sure about, the swing states.
Yeah.
And then he may even pick up some you wouldn't expect.
Perhaps, but for the moment, I mean, Bloomberg came in and has spent like millions of dollars on open office plans, and he's fucking nowhere. No, what did he say?
Oh no, it's amazing. He's obviously his campaign put up. It's like Bloomberg 2020, and they put up a tweet. It's meatballs. It's literally like spaghetti meatballs, and then in the one meatball they photoshopped like his face, right? And then it's like, can you find Mike in the meatballs or something like that? It's the most it's like a cursed image. It's fantastic. He's spent billions of well, not billions yet, but hundreds. I think he's at the hundreds of millions already.
Really?
I think he's in the early hundreds of millions. It's somewhere around 135 million or something like that. I
love it. He spends all that money, then he goes on some panel and he says he loves China, and Xi Jinping is not a genocidal dictator.
He's not a dictator.
He has a constituency he has to support, You know what it means putting millions of Uyghurs in death camps.
Yeah, absolutely.
These people are so shameless.
At
least we know that Trump is shameless, because he keeps saying so, or he keeps acting like he's shameless. Like, we know that guy doesn't give a shit. These other people, they really make you want to believe that they really
but it's not
care.
Only that,
and they're just fucking shameless.
It's more, Trump is way more predictable than a lot of these other people. Like, if you had told me 5 years ago that the Democrats would support Iran, and when a terrorist got blown into pieces, I don't care that he was a general in Iran. Why the fuck was he in Iraq then? When a terrorist got blown into pieces, a terrorist who had killed, no one's denying this, not Iran, not the Democrats, not anyone, who had killed hundreds of American soldiers.
Up to 600, they claim.
When he got blown into pieces, that the Democrats would literally come out in his defense and in Iran's defense. That everyone would talk about Donald Trump being such an evil man, but nobody would talk about the Uyghurs in China.
Uyghurs. It sounds very close to another dirty word, but Uyghurs, not Uyghur. Uyghurs.
Okay, got you. And in fact, if you notice, Hong Kong's disappeared. That's not changed. No one's talking about the yellow vests in France. There's been a low-level civil war in France for the past 18 months, I think. And it's not anywhere on media. Now, I'm not sure I entirely am with the yellow vests in terms of their demands and their complaints. But the bottom line is this is happening almost on a daily basis. And it's just so blatant who supports what, just completely based on what they like or who they don't like or which agenda they want to push. And that's why I say Trump is more predictable.
But the most interesting part about the World War III for 24 hours was that Trump killed 2 people.
Yes.
And he wanted to kill those 2 people. No other casualties, no other things. I mean, Obama just fucking willy-nilly bombed 150 people at a wedding.
So that's the report that's coming out. Is if everyone recalls, there was an attack on a ship in Strait of Hormuz, and then Trump had drones in the air, and he called them back. And at the time, the left-wing media said, he's a chicken
shit,
and he doesn't have the balls, and it's a big Iran win because now they look like they won basically this particular skirmish and all this kind of stuff. And the reason he was claimed at the time he pulled stuff back is because his generals told him how much collateral damage there would be, and he said he didn't want to kill those civilians.
Yep, I remember that story.
And he was ridiculed for this. You can go look it up. It's in the New York Times. And, of course, they're the paper of record. So please go look it up.
Well, just listen to Michael Malice, sorry to interrupt. He says the bloodthirst of the media is like unsatiable.
If it bleeds, it leads, right?
No, but it's like unsatiable. They supported every single fucking war. And now that Trump doesn't support war, they're against him.
Yeah, but then what's interesting is, and they were the ones pushing World War III, funnily enough. But,
exactly.
And then if apparently the reporting that's coming out now, I think Politico reported this, that Trump had given the order that they could kill Soleimani. I think it was about 9 months ago. That actually was originally when it said, all right, let's kill this guy, let's take this guy out. But it came with conditions, and those conditions were you cannot kill any civilians, family members, those types of people. It's once again, if they want to win 2020 from Trump, they just need to report honestly. They need to give him his wins, but nail him on the stuff where he screws up or he says dumb things.
Dumb things are aplenty, but where has he screwed up in a material way? Because I'm not trying to be a troll, but I don't know what major screw up he has done.
I think the stuff around he did unnecessary things around the Mueller report, and if you read the Mueller report, there's nothing in there that's like terrible, but there's a whole bunch of things that he reacted to by being investigated that were kind of screw-ups. Did they make material difference to the American people? I don't think so. In terms of material difference, some people would argue his trade war has had some impact. There are some farming communities that are worse off than they were, even with his subsidies.
Even with them, okay.
Yeah, so some of them are worse off, but not many, but some of them.
But do people see the long game to sort of rein in China?
So
that has an effect.
If you're a farm on the ground who's not surviving, then probably not. Yeah. But yeah, I think that will be one part of his legacy, especially if he goes for 8 years, is going to be what happens with the dynamic between the US, China, and China in the world. But yeah, in terms of being materially bad for the average American, nothing major. Little things here and there, I think you could cite certainly. but nothing major. The economy is doing
No, but just compare the social unrest under Obama, Black Lives Matter and police shootings. I'm not saying he's responsible for it, but it's a measure of a society in a particular time.
Sure.
And under Trump, we had pussy hats and Ricky Gervais calling everyone a cunt at the Oscars.
How amazing was that?
Or Golden Globes.
That was fantastic.
But socially, there's no like huge protests. There's no like big outrage in America. Okay, but Harvey Weinstein got taken down. Jeff Epstein did not kill himself, but managed to. But a lot of stuff has happened that is so-called good under Trump presidency. Yeah. Not that he's responsible for it, but just the measure of a society is interesting.
The real problem is that it's so hard to tell. You know, during the Obama era, it was difficult. So if you weren't an Obama fan, you knew like some of the things that were off. But like now, 4 years later, you really know stuff that you didn't know before. I mean, the drone attacks, for example. Everyone knew he was droning the shit out of the Middle East, but we didn't know the sort of context to it as much. We knew that here there was an incident and it was the wedding, for example, or the hospital that got caught up in Afghanistan. We knew about those kinds of major incidents. We didn't know the 16,000 number. We didn't, these were not things that were well known. The scope of his admin's dealings with Russia were far underplayed. But now because they play up everything Trump does with Russia, everyone's looking at what Obama did with Russia, and actually it doesn't look very good.
And what Obama did with Iran, dude, the nuclear deal, the Iran deal, the funding. Trump says, funny enough, the missiles that Iran sent to the military bases was probably funded by Americans under the Iran deal. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the terrorism that took place, so a lot of the escalation in Syria, a lot of what's happened in Lebanon, definitely what's happened in Gaza and the West Bank, a lot of that was driven by Iran, and it was subsequent to Iran getting all that money from Obama literally in pallets of cash.
To not develop a nuclear weapon.
So the big argument on the pallets of cash is that it was their cash, because when originally the revolution happened, America froze a whole bunch of assets.
That's right, yes.
So this was the return of those assets plus interest. The problem is why on earth would you return that amount of assets to a state is the largest funder of terrorism in the world, that is literally arming terrorists against you and your allies? You'd have to be nuts to do something like that. There was no element of trust that could be relied upon at that point with Iran, and subsequently proven. Another sort of interesting blowback I saw today. So Obama stopped selling Hellfire missiles. So the Hellfire missile it's a short-range missile. It's an air-to-surface missile usually. It goes on the Apache helicopter.
How the fuck do you know this? What have you been reading?
It's been a busy December, Ramon. So it goes on the Apache helicopter, and Obama stopped selling them to Israel because, of course, Israel's a terrible state, and Obama wasn't a big fan. So Israel developed their own missile. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but they developed their own missile, and now America buys those missiles to put on their Apache helicopters and is using less Hellfires. So hilarious side effects and consequences.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, on foreign policy, Trump has done everything right to make America great again.
Yeah.
I mean,
North Korea is still up in the air, I think.
Still up in the air, but geez, he's the closest it's ever been to something.
And there hasn't been a nuclear test in North Korea for 2 years now.
That's right.
Which is a long period for a country that was agitating a lot. Yeah, they fired a couple of missiles towards Japan that they have done, but they were nuclear testing. They were nuclear testing every 6 to 9 months, and they haven't. So seems to be a positive step. But I do think it's still up in the air, and I think the criticisms of him sort of making nice with one of the worst dictators in the world are fair, and unless he gets really good outcomes, they will be fair criticisms forever. So we'll have
Rocket
to see.
Man. You're talking about Rocket Man?
I'm talking about Rocket Man.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right, very good. And then, funny enough, so the Golden Globes happened. Ricky Gervais went viral. Man. We all like Ricky Gervais. But what is interesting, did you notice who won and how much merit there was to their winning the award? Like 1917, which I haven't watched yet, but apparently it's
this is the best year for Oscars in 20 years.
Joaquin Phoenix, Best Actor, Judy Garland, I don't know, Renee Zellweger, I haven't watched it. But everyone that won was like they deserved it.
Yeah.
So people are bitching about diversity and bullshit, but for once it seems in a long time like merit actually mattered this time.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
I'm not sure what's happened. I think Hollywood is starting to understand, and it's just about business. This has nothing to do. They've finally understood that the ideology got pushed a little bit too far, that their bottom lines were starting to look really...
Well, when Harvey Weinstein's raped half the room in the Beverly Hills Hotel at the Golden Globes, it's a bit difficult to be like, yeah, we are virtuous.
Yeah, I mean, but they tried it for a couple of years in a row, and they kept getting mocked because they kept getting told, you would say this virtuous thing, and they kept going after, for example, the Me Too year. They had all the women wearing black, I think it was, and they all said something about rape and whatever, but it was a joke because in the room there were still rapists. In the room you still had people who were outward supporters of Roman Polanski.
Well, they gave him a fucking award at the same show, right?
I think it was in the same year. I can't remember if it's the same show, but yeah. This was the type of stuff that was going on. They seem to have either got the message, or people who could care less are just making great films. Maybe that's what's happening. And the best picture list for the Oscars is the best list of films that we've had in probably 20 years or more.
They are objectively the best films of the year.
Because Best Picture hasn't been the same since Shakespeare in Love won that award. I mean, what a fucking travesty.
Saving
Private Ryan.
Private Ryan, it beat that, I remember.
Just unbelievable.
No, but a few years ago, Spotlight beat out like Blade Runner and
but a woman fucking a fish also won Best Picture. So
that was a shit movie.
Yeah, of course
I like
a shit movie.
Del Toro. I think Pan's Labyrinth is one of the best films ever made. But that fucking Shape of Water sex fucking thing is a terrible movie. I don't know why they like that one so much.
So yeah, it's
a homage to
great. Look, if you haven't seen Ford versus Ferrari,
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, you have to see it. It's just a great movie.
I know, I do.
Really, just an enjoyable film, good acting, great storytelling, just everything about it. Good film. I'm sure 1917, I want to see it, is a great film.
It's coming out this week.
The director is...
phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, his record speaks for himself. But it's basically a film filmed in one shot. There's a couple of tricks, but it's a World War film filmed over days with a single shot. If you've seen the trailer, there's a shot of the main character running across a battlefield with mortars going off around him. It is spectacular.
It is.
It's beautiful filmmaking.
So my friend in the US...
And Joker, of course.
Yeah, but my friend in the US said there's very few reasons to go to IMAX, but 1917 is probably the best reason to go if you've never been or you haven't
Star
been.
Wars. Are you not a big Star Wars fan?
Fuck Star Wars.
Oh, we have to do a show with Miguel then, because I've got to do a whole Star Wars wrap.
Star Wars is the biggest load of shit I've ever seen in my life. It's like Avengers.
For those who give a shit,
worse.
let me do like a 30-second to a minute
You
wrap.
have 10.
J.J. Abrams had a lot of heavy lifting to do, and for the most part, he did a great job, except for some of the giant plot holes he created, but he had no choice. There you go.
And no one cares. You see, everyone's switched off now. We can talk about whatever we want. Because everyone just switched off. I said you said Star Wars.
Oh, damn it. All right,
Star Wars is bullshit, man. It's absolute bullshit. And I don't want to talk about it ever again.
All right.
And I watched all of them because my wife loves them, and I just can't understand it. Like, what is it about Star Wars that's like cool? The acting is terrible.
Yeah.
The special effects are okay for the modern
so at this
era.
stage, it's kind of like Legacy, right? It's kind of like...
Yeah.
It's so I enjoyed the first three films, not all the same, and I'm probably in the minority in the one I like the most, which is Return of the Jedi. But then what happened was you had this. It was a massive film event, kind of like Avengers was.
Or Lord of the Rings.
And then, or Lord of the Rings, or any of these sort of big film events. And then they didn't do anything, and then they sort of came back with it. It was kind of became cultish in a way, and then they brought it back 20 years later, whatever it was, and they brought it back, and then it kind of built on that kind of legacy and this thing. And if you were already into it, it was kind of like, well, I'm in the Star Wars thing, I dig it. And look, they're simple stories. I mean, the acting's not particularly good, especially in the first one. The script writing is horrible. In fact, George Lucas had to have his pen taken away from him ultimately.
Well, especially the second trilogy.
Because he was, I mean, his script writing, that's one of, not his screenplay. His screenplay is quite good in terms of what happens.
Right.
But his script writing, in terms of dialogue, is horrific. He's terrible at it. in fact, there were big fights between him and Steven Spielberg on the Indy series on Indiana Jones, because George Lucas was involved there. and as I say, his dialogue is terrible. But it's a very basic sort of story, about a hero. It's got a little bit, there's an infusion of the idea of religion is in it, obviously, because Star Wars is really about good and evil and the Force.
But
and all
it's
that
so
shit.
binary.
That's what kind of
I mean, at least Lord of the
catches
Rings
people.
had like a lot of grey. Not that it's my favorite series of all time. It was spectacular, but it's a lot more nuanced and a bit more complex. Star Wars is always very like.
Yeah, you see, I didn't enjoy Lord of the Rings.
It was fun. For the time.
In terms of films, the books is a different debate. But yeah, this is why we must have a film show on soon. We must have a film.
You and I?
No. Well, we'll do you, me, and Miguel. We'll bring in.
Oh, we'll bring in Miguel.
Because he brings in the balance, and generally agrees with you. Actually,
that's true, because you have terrible taste.
Except he won't agree with you on Star Wars.
Star Wars is a waste of time. It is. Well, I got nothing else written down, so we can talk about what you want for the next.
Well, I think we need to punch your new short podcast.
Oh, well, we're going to edit this and put this right at the front. Well, I'm editing it, so I'll put it right in the front. No. Just a short daily news and analysis podcast. It's called The Morning Shot. It's not what you do with your wife. It's what I call the podcast. Or your boyfriend. I don't know. We don't discriminate, yeah? Or your dog. Don't do that. That's illegal.
Please don't do that.
So it's The Morning Shot. Look for it on YouTube or your podcast app. And there's one every single morning, between 5 and 10 minutes, about the news of the day and my analysis on it.
Excellent.
So instead of listening to fucking McFuckface somewhere, listen to me.
Or you can even watch him and his new hairstyle, as you can see if you're watching this particular episode.
No, the reason this is not a style, that's why I got it.
Because you don't have to do anything with it.
No.
It's very CrossFit.
No.
Are you still CrossFitting in 2020? Because it's so like...
Every day, bro.
It's so like the tens decade.
Every day, bro. No.
In the box.
It was P90X. No, it was Tybo. Remember Tybo?
Yes, Tybo. Yes.
That was like in the 90s.
You had to have the video though. Hey?
Yes, you had to buy Billy Blanks or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Then there's P90X. Also, you had to buy the DVD.
Yeah.
And now CrossFit, you don't have to. You just go to YouTube and get your shit there.
Or you go to the box.
And you go to the doers.
Yeah.
And you hit the waist.
All right.
CrossFit is great. Everyone should do it.
I haven't been managing a board this whole show, so I have no idea how long we've been.
You can't cut me off. I can talk about whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's wonderful.
I can steal your mic from you, though. If it gets like out of control.
When push comes to shove, I think I'll win, to be honest.
Probably. Have we given our listeners enough time here?
I think it's been about an hour and 10 minutes.
All right.
So we were supposed to have a guest, but he didn't come back to me in time. But yeah, we really want to pick up on the guests. We'll try really hard to get like proper good guests, especially with our new studio. It's a lot easier to find. It's more public. And we hope to have a lot more sort of social interaction. You chaps who are listening, coming here and joining us for a live podcast, stay a few minutes with us, and we'll record and shoot the shit. And it's a bit of a Joe Rogan-esque setup, as you can see, and it's actually pretty cool. Yeah,
we need, I don't know, we need something on that wall, though. We can't put an American flag, but and we're not putting a South African one. But yeah.
And not the old one either.
No.
I know you wanted to, but I said no.
Yeah, sorry. I think you were right to tell me no.
Maybe a germ cartoon.
Let's finish off on that. Germ, what is wrong with him?
Nothing wrong. Nothing's wrong with him. Germ drew a cartoon like a year ago or 6 months ago.
8 months, something like that.
Whatever it was. And then Helen Ziller said, this is a great cartoon, or she appreciates the message. And then people willfully
misinterpreted.
No, but this is, I don't care about the bots, because I don't expect much from people who get 30% in high school. But journalists willfully misrepresent it and write stories about absolute bullshit. I said this is my latest morning shot. The double standard is so fucking obvious. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. It's the standards for white South Africans, Jonathan, about hate speech or what crime they commit. The standards and exposure that they have in media is like so much higher than the average black South African. It's like sort of white supremacy 101. If you're white and you do something wrong, we're going to fucking put you up on this pedestal and we're going to let everyone know what you did and what standards fall upon you. If Malema says things that are way worse than Helen Ziller says, not a blip. Not a fucking blip. The story becomes what Helen Ziller responded to the hate speech that Malema uttered. It is fucking shameless.
Yeah.
And I hope it bites them. One day, they're going to get into trouble, and I'm going to sit and laugh a lot.
Yeah, well, I think it is already biting. Readership down worldwide of mainstream media, and people have caught on. So I think it's a good place to end it. And
yeah,
look forward to the year. We look forward to doing our shows. Hello again. We look forward to doing our shows. And
let us know if you want more merchandise. We haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, if you want more merch, we can do more merch.
We need to get some merch. Send us some designs. We won't pay you money this time.
No,
but just for free.
Yeah,
you love us.
We'll send that out. And keep listening to the show. Those of you who know people who don't listen to podcasts, well, they've missed a decade of them, really. But now would be a good time to introduce them. I actually, driving home, had someone in my car who had never heard of Pol Pot. So I had to give a history lesson. I think it's important that people start to get educated on just the basics of the world they live in and why things work as they do, why they get their money stolen from them by the government every month.
Yeah, and stop relying on fucking experts all the time, man.
Yeah.
Like I read, last story. I read this book, which I spoke about on the previous podcast about, it's called Dignity. And the guy traveled around American cities and towns that have been left destitute because jobs went overseas or whatever the case might be. And the book is fantastic. The guy's a bit of a lefty, but I appreciate that. But just the wisdom of the people who have like very little. They don't know what the fuck the New York Times is talking about.
Yeah.
Or like he says, what about like privilege? It's like, I don't give a shit. Like, what do you want? I just want, a job.
Yeah.
And I want to stop doing crack, and I want to stop being a whore, and I just want how it was for my parents when they moved here. It was difficult for them, but they managed to take a step up, and this time I can't take a step up. And those sort of stories are happening in South Africa right now, and no one gives a fucking shit.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
We care about what Helen Ziller tweets because Daniel Freeman doesn't get out the fucking office. He's not a reporter, never has been, hasn't spoken to a normal person in their life, asked them what their problems are, and never reported on it because he's not a fucking reporter. And if you follow Daniel Friedman or any other opinionisters on Daily Maverick who have these highfalutin notions about what a society in South Africa should have, like, time to go get fucked, go to Northern Cape, speak to someone who's been working on a farm for 60 years, and go speak to that guy about fucking white privilege and what Helen Ziller tweets, and see the reaction you'll get when the guy's fucking starving because there's no water for 4 months, or for 4 years rather. Yeah. That is a real fucking story.
And then understand the fundamentals that are able to lift people like that out of their lives, out of the and upgrade their lives, really. And that's what we, as always, talk about on the show, have been for the last 4 years, and will continue to do so. So thank you, as always, for listening. You can find us, of course, at Renegade_report on Twitter, Renegade Report on Facebook, the page and the group. Ramon at Roman Kabanak. His Twitter account is active. It never went anywhere.
No.
And myself at Jonathan_Witt. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.